Good morning, and welcome to a very special episode of Who Am I on this Mother's Day 2024. My regulars know that I have taken an 8-day break. We went on a field trip. We went out into the field and just did some field operations, exercised our muscles, our powers of observation, navigated strange lands, made friends, and connected with old friends. And now we're back, and I'm very, very happy to be back in the seat, asking the question, who am I? Who am I? Where did we come from? Where are we going? How did we get here? What's the formula for success? I got these written down, actually, so that I wouldn't forget. There's so many. How do I operate my vehicle? My HBV is what I call that, my human being vehicle. It's your land-based rover, your physical machine. How do you operate that? What's this medium I'm swimming in? And how does that work? All these questions. We're going to ask all these questions and more. We're going to answer some of them and probably generate the idea. I think you're supposed to generate more questions than you answer. But keep answering questions. But make sure that those questions generate more questions. Who am I? It's a worthy question. Ask it every day. Ask it every day. Now, I believe I might have some new potential listeners, people who have not been listening to me for a while and don't know my general thesis statements. So I'm going to start this show with I'm going to try to make the full circle of generalities, I'm going to make a quick traverse of the whole territory I'm trying to cover. So we are asking this question, who am I, in reference to source energy? And there's two reasons why we do it. One is for the socio-psychological benefits that mankind, both as individuals and how we relate to each other as groups. It can benefit us that way, making us more peaceful, more loving, more kind, more tolerant, better ideas about how to fix the problems, the very real problems that come up when you're trying to build cities and build transportation systems and everything so that all of humanity can move around and, basically have the opportunity to fulfill their dreams. It's perfectly fair to notice that humanity does have some problems that it needs to overcome. And I believe that this discussion that we are engaged in, this who am I discussion, will benefit humanity on two levels. One is that social psychological aspect, and the other one is literal energy. Literal energy. We're asking the question, who am I, in reference to source energy. And I believe that the answers that we will generate, and then the more questions that start being generated also as we start opening up these new fields, will ultimately allow us to completely plug into a different source of energy. Right now, our reality, if you're too fixed on staring at what we actually have, what we have created on the ground right now, which is, a century and a quarter of momentum of fossil fuel fueling all of humanity. For the most part, they are. Between everything from tar sands to regular crude oil to coal, natural gas, all of these things are fossil fuels. They are fuel created by the fossilized remains of beings who have gone before us. Now, it is absolutely not sustainable. It is not a sustainable way to power our machinery. However, the momentum that we have on the ground now, as we have been doing this for a century, when we really should have been incrementally, bit by bit, moving away from it. But we didn't. that is all discussed in the first link I have in the description of this video. I always put a bunch of links. They're the same links. Earlier ones might have less, but I've been adding more, and so I just keep pulling the same ones forward. The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. There's a YouTube version of that movie, absolutely free. I put it in the description. Also, there's Nassim Haramein's mathematical paper and the YouTube description of that. Also, the YouTube version of The Connected Universe. It's Nassim Haramein's movie that was put out in 2016, narrated by Patrick Stewart, talking about the mathematics of a connected universe, of a unified... the mathematics has been done, and the quantum world and the cosmological world has been reconciled. But the implications of it are probably not what conventional physics is interested in, especially any of those physicists who are working for the fossil fuel companies or are being paid for with grant money that has anywhere in their vested interests in staying on the fossil fuels. Basically, as human beings, most educated people, most conventionally educated people, when you talk to them about an over-unity device, that means a device that puts out more energy than it takes to run the thing, they would say, impossible. Physics says that's impossible. And they're right in a way, because the physics will say, in a closed system, you cannot have a machine that puts out more energy than it takes to run it. And they're right about that. What they're wrong about is the closed system, because there is no such thing as a closed system. You can't close the system because we are too connected. And actually, I have a lot of interesting thoughts about that. Somewhere down the line, I hope that I am free to share what I think, where I think we are going in the future, because of the fact that you can't really hide anything, because all of it mixes with all of it ultimately. The universe is holographic. When you put your PIN number down on whatever device it is, it's only a matter of time before that information leaks out, because it's not a closed system. It's all circulating. We are connected to all things. We are connected through the Planck field. We are connected through the wormhole structure. We are connected through the black hole structure, big nested Russian doll universes, the multiverse. We are so connected. Way more connected than we are not connected. So, if you have not heard my show before, let me see if I can make a quick circle around the concepts we're going to be tying together here. And then on different shows, sometimes I settle into more of an enthusiastic description of the quantum field and why it really matters that we're made of Plancks and that it's holographic and it's fractal and they really mean something by that. And sometimes I get more excited about, explaining to you what your negative emotions really mean. Don't take them so seriously, because your true self is safe. It's loved. It's not alone, couldn't possibly be alone, completely invulnerable. Nothing can hurt you where you really live, It all depends. I'm not sure where I'm going to be going with this one. But I had started with just an explanation of all those links that I have in my... Whoop, that's not what I meant to do. All those links that I have in the description of my videos. Let's see, what are the rest of those? Oh, there's the first episode of Quantum Revolution. It is, there's 12 episodes of that. The first one is just talking about the mathematics of a unified field, or the something. I don't know what the subtitle of that is. But that series talks about the fullness of space and the fundamentality of spin. which goes to gravity, by the way. Our understanding of source energy is not just going to allow us to plug our clever technologies into a whole new power system, clean, free, everywhere. It is going to allow us to conquer gravity, because when we understand that gravity is part of that spinning force, as the field comes into coherence, as it comes into matter, as it spins into protons, it can't do it without spin. Spin is fundamental to it. There's an episode about that. There's an episode about the black hole structure. Black holes, all the way from a proton is a freaking black hole. Not really the way we expected it to be, but it really is, and it obeys Planck. Let's see. It obeys the formula for Hawking radiation. And according to this, the Hawking evaporation time of a proton is going to be roughly 10 to the 35 billion years. That's a very, very long time. It means the proton is a very, very stable structure, actually. It is a black hole, though, and within its Planck field. So just so that you can understand, what is a Planck? First of all, I can see where I'm going. This is where my excitement is today, so I'm going to take it here. The way you get a Planck is a little frequency. It's a little teeny, eeny, weeny bit of mass, time, and distance. You could measure it all three of these ways, and here's the formula right here. Whoop, Planck units right here. And what you do is you take a photon, which is a packet of light, going at the speed of light, as photons tend to do, and have it cross its own diameter. That tiny little inky-winky length is the Planck length. The time it takes to do that is the Planck time. And that little tiny bit of mass associated with that little tiny bit of energy, because we know that E equals mc squared. Energy and mass are equivalents. The Planck mass is right there's the mathematical formula for it. But within the center of a proton, so imagine a proton, this mass at the center of all elements. What is a proton? Well, that's what it is. And how many Plancks can you fit in the center of a proton, which Nassim Haramein claims is a black hole, and I believe him, because the density, the singularity at the center of this Planck is a real thing. Now, how many Plancks do you think fit in a proton? Well, if you made every one of those Plancks the size of a grain of sand, instead of the teeny-weeny Planck that they are, the diameter of that proton is going to be from our sun to Alpha Centauri. Make it a sphere, fill it with sand. Now count those, however many those are in there. That's how many Plancks there are in a single proton. And a proton is very, very, very small to begin with. This is how come the ether wasn't picked up in 1886 when the Michelson-Morley experiment trying to find the ether that connects us all, why they couldn't find it, because their 19th century equipment just wasn't up to the task to find this very, 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 very fine-grained ether that connects us all. So I showed this picture. This picture right here is showing the relationship between all the Plancks inside of a proton and all of the protons in all of the universe. There's a relationship because encoded in the Planck field of every proton being updated as all the protons around the universe are moving around and doing different things. It's like all of the points across the field are uploading their information to the whole, and the whole is downloading its information to all the parts. That's what universal consciousness is. Now, there's hierarchies, and there are screening mechanisms and different things so that you're not bombarded, so you're not overloaded with way too much information. You've got a kind of your consciousness is like a constrictor. It brings it down to a level where you can deal with actual specifics on the ground. But who you really are is connected to the whole thing. And I believe that our understanding of this will help us find our way to peace on earth, goodwill towards men, that heaven on earth. I think we can re-garden the planet Eden. We call her Gaia, we call her Earth, we call her Terra. But whatever you want to call her, we can re-garden her. But what we're going to have to do is get off of fossil fuels. And there is a cadre, is that the right word? There is a conspiracy to keep us on fossil fuels. And that's all well and fine. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I wouldn't advise anybody to really focus this direction if you really want to fix it. Don't come at it directly. I have some advice about perhaps how we do fix this. Is not focus on the individuals responsible and try to, hang them in the town square or whatever, because ultimately there is no us and them, and all of this is us. And quite frankly, you can go around them by just connecting to source energy yourself. Follow your inner being's guidance as to what is the best way to get us where we all want to go. And the miscreants will be taken care of. Their own karma will find them. You absolutely do not have to hunt them down. We can incrementally still move away from fossil fuels. Maybe. I don't know if we really can. We may have to go mutiny against the fossil fuel industry. I don't know. But that's not where I'm inclined to. I'm not inclined to physically go out there and push back against them. It's sort of the same way like when automobiles started overtaking horses and buggies. I mean, when automobiles came onto the scene, and you saw them as the future, but maybe you looked around and said, oh my God, but it's all horses and buggies. I need to get out there and protest horses and buggies because I want this new technology to come into our world. That's not how you have to do it. You don't have to do it that way. Just go for the cars. And just like this, just go for source energy. And the very first thing it's going to teach you is who you are. And you line up with who you really are. And now from a state of confidence and clarity and joyful, passionate, head filled with ideas about all kinds of exciting things to do and people to play with and things to invent and whatever it is. Now from that vantage point, you are helping the world. You are actually helping the world overcome its negativity, its issues. By following your own bliss, you are following your inner being's guidance. And why do I say that? So let's see whether I want to finish with the Planck field stuff. I don't know. Let me really quickly show you the information I've got. And we've got Nassim Haramein's paper. This was published last September, The Origin of Mass and the Nature of Gravity. This is the full abstract of that paper. Included as a link put in the description of this video is this paper, just on the web, this paper, and then they made a 37-minute, just really very, very dense explanation of this paper, and I thought it was amazing and very well done, and so I throw that in there too. It's a YouTube video. Let's see, what else? Because I want to close out this topic. Do I? Hold on a second. Let me regroup. I love talking about the quantum field. Actually, before I leave this topic, I will talk to you about a hologram. I keep saying that the universe is holographic. The universe is holographic. What the heck does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. So imagine this, first of all. We're going to imagine how they make just a plain old man-made hologram that we can make. Not this amazing freaking holographic universe that God is. Ooh, did I use the G word? Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. That the Almighty is. So how you make a regular conventional hologram, you take a laser beam, split it into two beams. two identical beams, one redirected by mirrors to a meeting point, the other one redirected to scan an object. Then that information is redirected to meet the original laser, the original split. When those two beams come back together, they create an interference pattern. And across that interference pattern now, all of the information of what the one side scanned, it's all there. So say it scanned an apple and then it met up with the original beam, and then an interference pattern is created, and within that interference pattern now you can find all of the image of the apple anywhere in it. So you cut it in half, the whole apple's still there. Cut that in half again, the whole apple's still there. Now, as Nassim Haramein points out, the resolution will start declining. You're not going to get a really good resolution, but the information of that apple, you can go forever and ever and ever. And that's what holographic means. It means that all of it is in every bit of it. And that's what you're looking at in the universe that we are swimming in. That's the meaning of understanding this medium, because it's really very, very interesting. And the meaning of your emotions, positive and negative, what do they mean? Quit judging them either way and just start adjusting your thoughts so that they feel better. Quit taking the thought that feels the worst, assuming it's true, and that's why it feels so bad. Must be true because I'm getting this hit of something that's telling me how really, really, really awful it is. Well, don't take it at face value, because it's lying to you. It's lying to you. And that very exact situation, you could walk into the exact situation with a completely different mode going on in your solar plexus, in your emissions, in your vibrational offering, and your experience that you get out of it would be absolutely 180 degrees different than the one that, when you went in negative. And both times you're going to be confirmed. Both times the universe is going to say, yep, you're right. So which one do you want to be right at? The happy one or the really sad, angry, jealous, whatever one? Now, what more do I need to show here before I leave this? We may, organically mention the Planck field, the divine matrix that we are all a part of. We will. As a matter of fact, you can't get away from it. When we start talking about the socio-psychologics of this, I don't know if that's a real word. It might involve what do you call the forward slash or backward slash? One of the two. I'm not sure which one it would. In any case, the source energy part of it, the fact that we are connected through this divine matrix, makes every bit of difference in our social and psychological interactions with ourselves and other people. The torment that we give ourselves in our own freaking minds, and then the chaos we create in the world around us. It's because I believe this very strongly. I believe that we've been genetically modified. And here I'm going to really quickly tell you why. So this is your brain. This is your physical brain, your micro brain, not your macro. This is not your source mind. This is your physical mind. But your physical mind has this neocortex level, which is basically your humanness. This is your humanness, and it is your overview mind. It's the one that can think broadly, that can add things up, that can be logical and analytical and take a broader perspective rather than just the hormonal hits coming from the mammalian brain saying, I'm looking at something I don't like. I'm afraid for my child. I need to protect my territory. Actually, territoriality comes from the lizard brain, but you get the idea. There's the ones that are reacting to the environment that are hardwired in a way, consciousness that seems to be more hard linked to the environment. And then there's this neocortex, which is kind of a thoughtful space where you can put it all together and come to conclusions. And actually, this part of your brain is also responsible for your emotions. Because when your broader perspective mind takes thoughts that your pure positive energy source mind disagrees with, you get negative emotion. And when you think thoughts that go along with this, beautiful, connected, pure positive energy aspect of yourself, when you have thoughts that resonate with that aspect of yourself, you are in passion and ecstasy and vital life. It's your relationship to your inner being that's causing those emotions, because your inner being is also your broader perspective. So your broader perspective mind, how well it's blending with your broader perspective self, that's why that's happening. That's what your positive and negative emotions are. Now, we're not saying that you have to like things that you don't like, because it's very valid that you might be taking negative emotional hits for things that you are observing. But understand how this universe is actually designed. And if you truly, truly, truly want to make it better, then you need to act in ways that are in tandem with how it really works. And not just knee-jerk and then go at it like a bull in china shop. A really good analogy to the way this works, because the idea is you kind of have to stay in some state of positive emotion. If you fall into a state of negative emotion, all that you are confirming is that there's something in the field, some conditionality in the field that you do not prefer. People are raping each other, bombing each other, killing each other, starving each other, or the rest of the ecosphere, all the things you don't like, and you're getting negative emotion hits about it. And there's really nothing abnormal about that. As a matter of fact, you should be getting negative hits. However, you can't actually act directly from a negative impetus, because you're not getting clear instruction from your overview when you do that. Your overview is pure positive energy and trying to guide you in a pure positive way. So as long as you are, whenever you are in resonance with your inner self, now you can act, because you're getting clear impulses. And when you get an impulse to act, hold on just a second. Actually, I should not go down this road quite so quickly, because I hadn't finished explaining why I think we're genetically modified. So 76% of this neocortex volume of your overview brain that basically makes you, this is your humanness, or it's a large part of it. There are likely other things that, I'm not sure which chromosome is in charge of our speech or responsible for some of that. It might be number 7. That one might be tweaked. But I have this evidence here that I'm going to show you right now. So 76% of the neocortex volume is created. What's responsible for that is chromosome number 2. And chromosome number 2 is a funny thing. She's a fused chromosome. You can find this article. It's open source. This is the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, pnas.org. Very, very easy to find this article. October 15th, 1991 is this volume 88, I guess, but I couldn't just find this volume, October 15th, 1991. And then I couldn't find a table of contents, so I just started reading names of the articles. This is the 40th one in. Origin of human chromosome number 2, an ancestral telomere to telomere fusion. This is the full abstract right here. Listen to what they're saying. We conclude that is the relic of an ancient telomere to telomere fusion and marks the point at which two ancestral ape chromosomes fused to give rise to human chromosome number 2. They're basically saying human chromosome number 2 is it's a fusion of two others glued telomere to telomere. Actually, if you read the whole article, you realize that what they're also saying is that redundancies on both sides of the equation now were clipped away, probably to stabilize the fusion because that's what it did. And then the result is 76% of it is the neocortex, and look at what else they say. The two chromosomes they started with were ape chromosomes. The one that is produced is a human one. I think that this is at least part of our missing link. Somebody created us. They created us to be special. And a lot of what the special they created us to be is our emotions. But then nobody gave us a user's manual to show us how to use them, to show us what they meant, to show us who we fundamentally were, what we are made of, how this actually works, how the quantum field, the connected universe, how it actually works. It's like the universe is alive. And there is such a thing as universal consciousness. And if you hit the right frequency, you can be in there for a minute and you go, oh yeah, I remember this place. This is where all of us are. I remember this place. And then life kicks you back out onto the front line and you're like, oh, I'm all lost again and pissed or angry or threatened or, whatever. That has a tendency to take you away from your source. And we don't have a user's manual that easily guides us back. Who are we? Who are we? Where did we come from? And now let's assume we have been genetically modified. Who did that? I know that if you go over to Gaia, there's a lot of places where people are making conjectures and people are channeling shit, saying that we came from this place and that place, and I don't know. It would be nice if all of our really good minds were all over this. I would love that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is our emotional guidance system, because actually this tweak right here created our emotional guidance system. It created the overmind that is supposed to blend with the overmind of our higher being. Now, before this, we didn't really need that because we were hardwired into source. We were very much just not thinking, just acting when impulses came to us. And that would have been from source. And who is source? I haven't explained that, have I? Because I'm not going to anthropomorphize this. Source is a pattern of energy flow. Source is fundamentally who we all are. Source is the Planck field coming into form. But upon what basis, upon what fulcrum does it turn? What makes tomorrow different from today? And can you guide it in a specific way or even a general way? What I think we have to do is I think we have to be satisfied going general first. And as soon as we are solidly in our general frequency, now we can start diving into specifics. That's actually how I believe we need to do it. But so who are we? Hold on one second. Shall we go to our emotional guidance system now? Your emotions are telling you how well or how not well the thoughts that your physical mind is taking, how well or not well those thoughts are blending with the thoughts that your inner being has. Who is your inner being? What's your inner being? What's your inner being? What is that? At first I was thinking of it, I think about it in all kinds of ways. There's a lot of different ways that you can think about it, and there's a lot of ways that human beings do think about it. The oversoul, some people just go straight to the G word, or they call it their inner being. They call it the Holy Spirit. That's another way of looking at your connection between you and your vibrational self. This vibrational self is attached to you. You could not. It is you, actually. It's the real you. And so it can't be removed from you. You can't, it can't be separated from you because it's your actual self. So, hold on just a second. I've got to think about what about this do I need to say? Am I going to do a whole presentation covering all my bits? I'm doing a really good job at it. I think I can probably finish the whole thing. My thesis question is, who am I? And the answer, well, I've already told you what my two prongs are. The first one is literally to understand my own equipment better, so that I don't blunder into things that I would prefer not to blunder into. I want to be taking correct impulses from the correct stance. And I know that I just said a sentence there that people are going to take out of context, because there really isn't any wrong way. Even if you're going 180 degrees in the opposite direction of what you actually want, it's only for clarification. It's like, if you don't see the demons in front of you, don't worry, they'll get bigger. And the only reason why you say don't worry, they'll get bigger, is because don't worry, the illustration will get bigger, and at some point you will understand what you're looking at. So that's always waiting for you if you are stubbornly determined to move, to think, to act and operate while under the auspices of a negative impulse. If you are determined to do that, well, the good news is that, well, it will get bigger, it will get clearer, and at some point you will understand it. And you will probably, whip back in the other direction. Sometimes the biggest sinners, the biggest train wrecks, turn into the greatest apostles. You never know. Everyone is on their own path. Everyone has their own divine, autonomous journey to complete. And since the whole setup is all about perspectives anyway, in a profound way, every single being on the planet has a rightness. They are all right in a way. They are all right as in correct. They are all correct in a way. Everybody's right. Everybody's right. And everybody's wrong, too, especially if you think that you're right and your neighbor's wrong. Because actually the true answer is, I'm right, you're right, he's right, she's right, and if that ends up equaling an equation that doesn't mean anything to you, yeah, well, when you take it all the way to that, then there's no discernment. But there actually is. Because your inner being really knows who you are and what you want, and she will never stop guiding you in the direction of where you want to go, even if you don't know where you want to go. And how does she do it? I'll tell you how your inner being guides you. So let's go to this picture. This is one of my favorite pictures, even though it's really inadequate, very poorly done. I just clipped this off the internet. It's basically camera apertures. One is a wide open aperture, and the other one is a pretty constricted aperture. You can almost imagine the vortex of a spin on this one, because they are spinning vortices of attraction. They are. This goes to law of attraction. You are these two beings, and they are both spinning. The one on the left is your source mind. Think of it as you from your skin outward. And the one on the right is your physical mind. Think of this as from your skin inward. Your physical mind, your source mind. They both are thinking thoughts. You have no control from your small position, from your specific you self, from your boots on the ground position. You do not have any control over what your source mind, whether she goes negative or positive, or whether she's which direction she's looking. You don't really have much control over her. If any, I don't think you have any control over her. You certainly have no ability to get her to go negative. She will not go negative no matter how negative you are being. Now, you might be able to influence her into going somewhere in the specific universe and beholding something that you are passionate and joyful and excited and eager and interested in. You know, you go that direction and she's going to be right there with you. So you have that kind of influence. She will be with you always. So where you go influences where she goes, because that's where you're going. But you cannot make her go negative. She will never, ever, 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 ever go negative. So if you really want to resonate with her, you've got to find your happy thought. Isn't it funny that so much mythology kind of brushes that direction? That's how Peter Pan got his powers of magic and his ability to fly back. He had to find his happy thought. And how did he lose it? How did he lose his flight for a while? He lost his happy thought. I'm referring to the movie Hook, of course. I don't know what the guy who wrote Peter Pan, I'm not sure what those books actually did, but there's another great example of all of this in the Harry Potter books. There's Harry has won the Felix Felicis elixir, where liquid luck, that thing. And he needs to get that little bit of memory from Slughorn. And he has not been successful. And so he decides that he's going to take this, the liquid luck, he's going to drink it down, and he's going to let that help him. And so he drinks it, and then now he feels so good. And he's just, for no particular reason, he's like, I just have this feeling, I need to go this way. And so he goes down to the horticulture lab, and he's like going in the opposite direction of where Slughorn is, who's over at Hagrid's, I believe, because Aragog has just died, the big spider. Anyway, they can't talk Harry out of the direction he's going, and he's got this big smile on his face. In the end, Felix Felicis does exactly what they needed it to do. Harry gets the memory from Slughorn. But he goes in a happy direction that's not necessarily directly at it. But it's a satisfying journey for him. And in the end, it's a successful journey for him. And that's actually what your inner being is trying to do. Your inner being is trying to lead you. And this is why. Because your inner being abides somewhere between 7 and all the way up. Between contentment all the way up to freedom, passion, love, all of that. That's where your inner being is hanging out. And your inner being knows who you really are. In a way, your inner being is who you really are. So quit staring at the demons in everybody's face and start looking for their inner beings, because we are all a mixed bag of everything. And you know what happens? When you allow yourself to be fooled by the conditions that have summoned forth from you a negative emotion, and now they've fooled you into thinking that that's what's real and that's who you are, and you're acting on those negative emotions, what you've actually done is you're letting demons drive your vehicle. That's one way of looking at it. Another way is, I like to think of it as you are unleashing Shiva energy into the field, into the morphogenetic field that we all share. It's like we're in this super swimming pool. And it really matters. Your turds and your piss really matter to the collective clarity of this universal swimming pool that we are all sharing. It's how come we can't get out of each other's business? Because what you do really does matter to me. As Khalil Gibran would have put it, your neighbor is your unknown self, made visible. There is no us and them. The only way to truly understand who you really are, and in the end you have to do it all by yourself. In the end you've got to walk that lonesome valley. You've got to walk it by yourself. Nobody else can walk it for you. In the end, it is your divine autonomy that you are claiming, that you are finding. And the good news is that when you claim it and when you man the center of your center, when you line your two selves up between the two of you, you become really, really powerfully safe in this world. You have so much more clarity, you have so much more conviction, you are going much more purposefully in the directions that you start to choose to go. It's just a really good thing all the way around. You set up a kind of force field around you that only big storms will break through. Little storms coming in around you won't knock you off of your game anymore. You'll maintain your good humor, your positive expectation, and your optimism will not be undermined easily. That's what happens when you line your two selves up. You claim your own divine autonomy. Now I'm going to do a couple more slides here. This one talks about your 4 general states of being. This is really important because your mood is what's driving your starship. I know I keep calling it different things. Is it your Earth rover or is it your starship? Well, your consciousness might be your starship, and then your physical body is your Earth rover, and your HBV is the combination unit. You know, the one who has the cosmic GPS system loaded onto a basically land-based vehicle. And anyway, these states of being is how you drive your vehicle. And the idea is that when you're in a positive state of mind, you are in resonance with your broader knowing. That you that knows who you really are and knows where you're going and is trying to guide you in that direction. Why is it trying to guide you in that direction? Because it's you. And it wants to have fun with you. I mean, it's having fun anyway because it knows the reality of pure, forward, positive evolution. It understands that that's where we all are in this field. This field is learning about itself. And so, of course, it can never know less. You can come into a body that can be blind to it for a while. You can play hide and go seek and peekaboo with this great allness thing that we are a part of. But so let's come back to our states of being. I have said this before, but if you're a new watcher, you've never heard me say this before. The general is your brake. The specific is your accelerator. You don't actually ever want to accelerate if you're in a negative. Don't accelerate. Try to get out of it as quick as you can. Go general, quit being specific. You can always pull back to life sucks. And people are just ornery rascals. That's lighter. That's lighter than the, Nazi assholes you thought they were a second ago. Ornery rascals. That's a little lighter. And then try to work your way to a general positive. If you can find your way to a general positive, now find your way back into the field. Because we really do need to be specific. We're here to live our lives. We're here to interact with the rest of the field and do all the things, the pedagogical things. We're born. We learn how to exist in our environment. We eat food. We eliminate food, or we eliminate waste. We reproduce ourselves so that the chain goes on and on and on. We have to be physical. But when you're under the influence of a negative emotion, it's like you've got your signal scrambled. You're still getting your source impulses, but you're reading them wrong. Your physical mind has mistranslated. And your first indication that that's what's happened is you feel bad. It feels bad to take your negative emotions literally and seriously and conditionally, and then imagine that your job is to go out there and fix all that condition out there that you don't like. Well, that isn't your job. Your job is to tune into the condition you want, because all the time you're trying to change that condition you don't like, you're actually dialing into it, and since this universe is vibrational, you're actually creating more of it. Law of attraction is bringing you more of it, more of it, more of it. And the more you stare that direction, the more you've convinced yourself that that's the reality, that's the primary reality of existence. But it isn't. If you had picked a different thing to focus on, you would be making that thing bigger and that influence. Now, I know that people don't want you to put your head in the sand so I have it boiled down. There's a half a dozen major things that I see as true negatives to mankind. But I think that the whole purpose is that we need to understand who we are. And every single one of these things can be fixed from a species who knows who they are and how to operate their consciousness, how to line up their beings and move in the direction of what their inner being knows they really want, which is back to Eden, back to a connected world where the air is clean and the water is clean and wildlife of all kinds are abundant. At the same time, human beings are safe. They feel safe. They have wonderful shoes that protect their inadequate, because we don't have skin that protects us from the environment. Our technologies give us comfort and entertainment and joy and all kinds of things. We love that. We love to travel around the planet and visit one another and taste one another's food and watch how different nations have handled this problem or that problem. What are you doing for healthcare? What are you doing for transportation? What are you doing to make sure that there's enough toilets out there so that everybody can have a nice sanitary experience, even if you're homeless? New Zealand did a really good job with that. Anyway, we love to do that, and we're going to continue to do that, and we need more and more and more energy to run our technologies, and this is not practical at all if you're still thinking in terms of fossil fuels. So you got to think in terms of source energy, because if you can plug your equipment directly into source energy, well, there's enough for everybody. There's enough at the point of desire. And if you are curious about the physicality of what that would look like, the movie The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It seems to believe that what it's going to be is a kind of small package, solid state device. Solid state as in no moving parts. So these things, if they deteriorate, it's going to take them eons to do so, or ages, long time. And it's a small enough, simple enough unit, it could be in every household, everywhere. Everyone could go right off the grid. They no longer have to they do not have to plug into the greater field of humanity in a physical way if they do not want to. Now, the internet is already, it's going to provide us a way to cross-communicate across the globe with one another, even if in individuality we are going out into the field and solving our own little eco problems in our own little ways with our own little energy devices. It's actually going to be really cool. And with us plugged into Source, the genius and clever, intricate fractal iterations of all the solutions is going to be breathtaking. I can hardly wait for this world. But this world is only going to come when people understand who we really are and quit fighting with each other over scraps because we don't have to fight each other over scraps. We can create an abundance that this world has never, ever seen before. We can do that, but we have to know who we are. And so that's where I come in. I'm not really at the point where I know how to coach anybody, and I don't know what specific things to line up, other than I think we need to know ourselves. So I'm going to show a couple more things, and then I'm going to sign off of this very special Mother's Day episode. Hopefully I have some new listeners to this one. But if not, if it's all just old listeners, I love you all, every one of you. Here we're going to go to cymatic patterns. Now, I've made a claim that we live in a vibrational universe. Now, I know Nikola Tesla said the same thing. When Tesla's ideas started skirting things that would have cut into J.P. Morgan's oil profits and communications profits, or whatever it was that Tesla was doing, so J.P. Morgan was Tesla's backer, financial backer. And the reason that Tesla died in relative obscurity is because Morgan pulled his backing because Tesla was being way too egalitarian about the whole thing. He wanted this for humanity. And Morgan wanted it for himself. So, and since we as a people did not have the consciousness to join Tesla at that time, it was what it was. And we are where we are because of our level of consciousness. What are we aware of about who we are and where we came from, how it works, what's the formula, what's the field we're swimming in, how does that work, what is source energy, how are virtual particles coming across the event horizon of the 0-point energy field, how are they doing that? You know? All of these questions. So cymatics is the study of the relationship between vibration and form. And it was pioneered by a man named Hans Jenny, who would take a metal plate and then sprinkle a granular medium over the top of it, and then pipe a vibration through the plate so that it's, vibrating to that frequency. And lo and behold, coherent patterns appeared. Now, this obviously is not what he did. This is a digital device that is creating patterns whenever you put a different frequency in. Boom, different pattern. It's a digital one. This is more like the original one. Upper right and lower left. Those would be metal plates with a granular medium. And you can see the coherent patterns that are rising and that are appearing. And when you change the frequency, the pattern changes. When you increase the frequency, the pattern becomes more complicated. So it's like you can see these other things that, I'll be darned, look like cymatic patterns to me too, as a silent witness that the underlying motion of the universe is vibrational. Snowflakes too. I imagine the reason every single snowflake is basically different is because as the ice is forming in the air, they are touching different frequencies that are causing different shapes on every one of them, because the frequencies come together differently everywhere. And so every snowflake's going to be different because they're riding on frequencies. And isn't that cool? That is so very cool. Another reason why I bring this up, not just because it's cool, or to cause you to believe that the universe is vibrational, although it's helpful, if you will. there's also another analogy here too, because I believe that as mankind on planet Earth at this time, we are upping our frequency. We are up leveling, and our frequency is rising. It's becoming more. It's like it is the second coming of Christ, but it's not a celebrity event. It's a spirit event all over the field. There are so many minds who can grasp the fact that I am grasping this, and I'm basically nobody. I have an Associate of Arts degree in college, you know? I have no discernible career, but I've been thinking about this for a long time. I've been adding it up, I've been putting it together, and I'm pretty smart, and I'm pretty sure you are too. Whoever you are. But since our frequency is changing, it's like the patterns in the world around us are shifting. And, from time to time, you notice that they're shifting to the better. Oh, look at that, that's better. Oh, look at that, that's better. And as a matter of fact, if you'd start noticing, it's to the better, to the better, to the better, to the better, to the better. But there's a lot of to the bad, to the bad, to the bad. And when people don't understand what their own consciousness and attention is doing to the shape of the field that they're looking at, well, there's a lot of unconscious negative creations that are going on. They believe that they're doing it for positive reasons, but the point is, we are not problem solvers. We are solution finders. And there's a subtle spiritual difference there. And it has to do with what's the spirit of the thought sitting at the center of the aperture of your focus. At the center of the aperture of your focus, you need positive. You can't be staring right into the face of Medusa, or she will turn you to stone. You won't have any idea how to act. You start thinking conditionally. You start thrashing around outwardly. You have to keep the good in the center. So we are not, if you're a problem solver, then the problem is what you're staring. It's a subtle spiritual difference, but it's a valid one. You're on the wrong side of the toggle switch if you're solving the problem. You're on the right side of it if you're finding the solution. Well, for one thing, the finding of the solution begins with assuming that a solution can be found. Now, for the longest time, we have been buying into this bullcrap that a solution to our fossil fuel problem, we just can't find it. We just have to keep staying on fossil fuels. And actually, the holy grail that a lot of thinking people, and they think that they're thinking cleverly when they think this, but they aren't. They think that the ultimate fix of this is clean fusion. It's not the ultimate fix. The reason that's not really the fix is because that still implies centralized power. That still implies a grid system. It still implies it's a system that's so vulnerable to sabotage. It's not going to be the way. It is not going to be the way. And those who own all of the levers of power and are in control of the petrodollars and fighting the wars amongst themselves and whatever, all of those people, they don't want to see you with a little solid state plugged into source energy packet right at your fingertips. They want to see the power stake. They want to be the Dr. Evils and the mighty Führers and the Kim Jong-uns and whatever of this world. However, I have an inkling that even they, if they could see how really cool and fun and blessed and abundant and free and beautiful and abundant, I know I said that already, let's have an abundance of abundance. Even they, I think, would prefer that Eden future than their apocalyptical one when they destroy us through their continuing to burn the fossil fuels. I think even they are on my side. I think even they want this. So I'm not going to go ask them, and I'm not going to push back against them, and I'm not going to fight them. I'm just going to understand source energy myself. Because what that gives me is an ability to line up with my inner being. My inner being has been tracking for my entire life every single thing I ever registered that I loved. Everything I liked, everything I wanted, everything I was interested in, anything that sparked that positive anything, she made a note of and is sitting there remembering it. And anytime I, walking through my life, come across any thought that takes me to any of those places that I love, she's right there, resonating with that, saying, yes, let's go this way, let's go this way. If I follow her, I will get everything I want. Okay, before I leave, I promised this. The half a dozen things that are the problems of humanity in a big, big way. Big, big way. There's little ones too, but these are the big ones. Global warming. Global pollution. Desertification. The growing deserts. Growing scarcity. World poverty. War. Garbage island. Is there any more? Those are big enough. Those are really... Ugh. But you know what? Every single one of those would be fixed if we would plug our frickin' technologies into something else. If we knew who we were. Now, our ability to do that is going to hinge on how well we come to understand who we are. I think the consciousness has to rise, because otherwise, if you handed some people now unlimited clean free energy, they'd just go murder their neighbors with it. They wouldn't have the imagination to understand what it really means. You don't need to push back against anybody. There's room enough here for all of us. The reason we fight wars is because we're consolidating our energy and our power structure systems, our supply chains, our ability to clothe ourselves and feed ourselves and transport ourselves and communicate with one another is becoming more and more and more centrally locked in. And so it really matters who's at the top of the ticket of that structure. And we're getting ready to make a choice between probably a senile, doddering, well-meaning, old, toe-the-party-line fool Democrat and his freaking bitter, angry, aggrieved, authoritarian psychosis candidate on the other side. I mean, it's just in a country of over 300 million, it is unconscionable that is the best that we could do. There's obviously institutions and forces all over the place in the background pulling those levers. That is not democracy. That is not democracy at all. But anyway, we can talk about that in future episodes. Absolutely. Talking about, what the world of the nations will look like when we understand that we can create so much abundance that we don't have to fight each other for that little scrap of abundance that's there and disappearing because we keep killing everything. We need to co-create with this magnificent Mother Earth Mother Gaia, Mother Terra. I had another name for Mother Earth a while ago. It seems appropriate on this Mother's Day. She is our mother. and she can't survive fossil fuels much longer. We need to make a concerted effort to get off fossil fuels, knowing that we can do it. It should be a national push for, have a national contest, a national science-based contest for who can come up with the best, most clever devices for energy saving and over unity and energy producing devices that we can come up with. But that's not going to happen because we're kind of in a state of fascism right now. Fascism being a state of the government and the means of economics. So like business and government in bed with one another. They're mutually supporting one another now. And their vested interest is now what's driving the machine instead of what's best for the whole field. And that's the problem. And then you gotta, you elect or you put into power some freaking authoritarian at the top of that structure. That's what we're headed for here in the United States. And the only answer to get out of that, and I do believe it is the answer, it's not pushing against what you don't like, it's understanding who you are. And allow your source side to lead the way. Lead us out of the wilderness. I'm letting mine lead us out. You let yours lead us out. And one by one, we all come out of the wilderness. On other days, I can also describe some other things that I understand about the tricky nature of this universe. There's actually... It's not a universe, it's a multiverse, and it's a really, really multitudinous multiverse. We're clicking back and forth or through billions of versions of the same planet Earth. And what it really means is you can yourself decide that you want to tune into that version of Earth that succeeds in overcoming all of our problems. And your desire to experience that world does not interfere with the being who wants to actually experience the post-apocalyptical one. And you have no control over that. You have no control over them. You really have no control over anything but yourself, and the control that you have over yourself, you're barely exercising. The control that you have is your ability to line up with your inner being, and then as a whole integral self, move through this world right straight towards your dream come true, your happily ever after, your successful project, your passion that you want to play out on this canvas called Earth. That's what you have control over. You don't have control over other people. You don't have control over conditions outside yourself. Not like you can't really assert it anywhere. It might look like you're asserting it in little ways here and there, but truly what has happened is somebody else's energy is attracting your energy. And so you actually didn't assert it onto them at all after all. We are all creating our own reality here. And we are co-creating it in a field of common reality. But it's not exactly common like you think it is. And it is way more huge than most of us are giving it credit for. And we can make it. We can make it, people, and it's going to be so much fun. Let's see, do I have anything left to say? I actually never mentioned this. The 5 kleshas. And they do come into play. Actually, real quick, before I get to the kleshas, I want to go back to this for a second because, imagine that we are up-leveling and that our vibration is changing. It means that the pattern on the ground is changing. But there comes a moment between, so You have one frequency, and then you change to another frequency, and it goes to the different pattern, to the second pattern. But there's a moment. There's a moment between when the old pattern is not fully in place. It's disintegrating. It's falling away. The old pattern, there's a few pieces of it left, a few islands here and there. The new pattern coming into shape is not fully formed. And what it can look like at that moment is chaos. But it isn't. Just know that, well, what do you cling to? Do you cling to the pattern coming into form? Well, that's better than clinging to the one passing away. As a matter of fact, if that form is all of your identity and your fortune and your ability to connect with the universe is mixed up with the old forms and you're clinging to them as they are falling away, you're probably feeling pretty insecure. If you kind of realize the new level of consciousness that we're coming into and you start forming your identity in the new vibrational form, then you're probably feeling pretty good, actually, because right now it's an open frontier for you. You can get in on the ground floor and start building those systems that are sustainable, that are harmonious with who we really are and what we want. And when it comes right down to it, what we want is what we need. Now, we think we want a lot of things that we don't need, but we don't really want them at the expense of what we need. Our needs being air, water, sleep, food, shelter or sheltering environment of some sort, relationship and expression. Those 7 things are what we want, and the rest we can do without, basically. So, on to the 5 kleshas. I'm almost done with the program. This is going to be great. So these are from Buddhist philosophy. These are considered to be the root causes of all suffering. And I'm going to have to kind of agree with them. I understand what they're saying here. Not knowing what is real, the rolling manifestation itself, in a way, is not real. It is, but it isn't. It's a real experience. It's a real perspective. It's a real apparition, but it doesn't really have solidity, and it certainly doesn't have any permanence, because the number one rule is that it's going to keep changing, and there's nothing that you can do to change that. It's going to keep changing. So not knowing what's real, and then when you don't know what's real, you start grasping and clinging to things in this material world, thinking that they're real, banking on them, counting on them, identifying with them, trying to hold them, being afraid of the unreal and recoiling from it. So if you are a student of A Course in Miracles, or have any idea what A Course in Miracles was, it was a channeled work. Very, very dense work. 365-day program, every day, a little exercise in perception. And basically the overall idea is only the love is real. And you are giving meaning to everything you're looking at. It doesn't inherently have the meaning that you think it does, because it does, for one thing, it doesn't look the same from every angle. So it doesn't inherently have the meaning that you think it does. You're giving it the meaning. And so it's important to understand what you're actually looking at. Now, this 4th one here, identifying with an imaginary self, I think of that a little bit more as overly identifying with your physical self, with your micro self, and maybe not even being aware that you have a macro self, If you identify primarily with your meat vehicle, it's made of meat. And so no wonder you're feeling vulnerable, because that's who you think you are. You think you are your meat vehicle, and that's only the vehicle that the real you is driving. And actually, it's a really, really cool vehicle. Somebody jazzed us up some 200,000 years ago, and from what I understand, it was against their own laws. Sort of like, disobeying the Prime Directive. Don't interfere with naturally evolving species on any planet, no matter how much of a great idea you think that is. Well, they gave us this neocortex. They gave us this overview mind, and then they didn't explain in any kind of way that lasted how do you carve the instructions in stone. I don't know. They left lots of monuments around with lots of mathematical equations embedded in them for our scientists to discover, and that should have been a clue that the ancestors that built this stuff were highly, highly, highly advanced, not, just barely out of sheep herding business a few centuries before, but highly advanced. So anyway, anything else? I might as well add this last thing. It's a little parable. Do I want to add this? It all depends on, I have it up. I don't know if anybody's ever heard this. I could put a link to this, but it's just a little, it's just a web page talking about this. This person, written by Chef Charlie. No, that's what, maybe. Chef Charlie. Yeah. I think he posted this. I came across this short feel-good story recently, and it captured so many elements of life that reflect about relationships to the world and each other. Elements of life that reflect about relationships to the world and each other. Okay, so listen to this. At 40 years old, Franz Kafka, who never married and had no children, walked through the park in Berlin when he met a little girl who was crying because she had lost her favorite doll. She and Kafka searched for the doll unsuccessfully. I don't know how little the girl was. I actually added the little word. Kafka told her to meet him there the next day, and they would come back to look for her. The next day, when they had not yet found the doll, Kafka gave the girl a letter written by the doll, air quotes, written by the doll, saying, "Please don't cry. I took a trip to see the world. I will write to you about my adventures." Thus began a story which continued until the end of Kafka's life, which was about a year later. During their meetings, Kafka read the letters of the doll, carefully written with adventures and conversations that the girl found adorable. Finally, Kafka brought back the doll. He bought one, of course, that had returned to Berlin. "It doesn't look like my doll at all," said the girl. Kafka handed her another letter, in which the doll wrote, "My travels have changed me." The little girl hugged the new doll and brought her happy home. It now says a year later, Kafka died. Many years later, the now adult girl found a letter inside the doll. In the tiny letter, signed by Kafka, it was written, quote, "Everything you love will probably be lost, but in the end, love will return in another way." Here we go. But in the end, love will return in another way. And that's what's happening in the field. Like, lost, but love is still there. Find me in a different face. Here, I am over here. Quit attaching to the forms, because the love is always there. The love is always there. The love is always there. And with that, on this beautiful, blessed day devoted In honor of mothers everywhere, mothers of all species, mothers of all ages, shapes, kinds, and colors. In honor of mothers everywhere, I bid you peace, and may the source be with you.